Welcome back to the Sooner Pocket Podcast on this Thursday evening, August 29th, getting ready for the first full evening of college football of the season. We had the week zero stuff, obviously. It's debatable whether week zero really counts as the true start of college football. But we're here now, week one, ready to go. Um, Chris, how are we feeling?
Man, I'm excited. I wish I got to see more of the games tonight, but unfortunately, being a loving fiance, decided to go see Lord of the Rings, the musical, with my darling fiance. But you know, week zero is fun. As the first game of the season, we got an unranked team upsetting a top 10 team. You can't really ask for more. And it wasn't just a general upset, it was one that came down to the final play of the game as the first game of the season. You can't ask for better.
No, you sure can't. You sure can't. That was a good one. Um, Maybe a sign of some chaos to come this year. We'll see. Some good news over the weekend, last week anyway, for the Sooners in the NFL. Creed Humphrey and CeeDee Lamb both signing very large contracts now. Creed's was a little before CeeDee's, obviously. CeeDee took us right up to the wire of the NFL season, but he's done it. Maybe it's his way of just not having to play in the preseason. Who knows? I don't know that I'd want to either. Sooners are doing really well. I think I saw a stat, some account tweeted out yesterday that CeeDee's contract is worth more than all the current Texas alumni that are in the league. That's uh that's an interesting stat, not one I would have tracked down.
Yeah, and it's it's well earned. I mean, Bijan Robinson, when his time comes, of course, he'll get a massive contract. But other than him, I mean, who are the successful Longhorns in the NFL? You've got Justin Tucker, he's really good. Who else? There's Joseph Osai, who's a backup on the Bengals and potentially cost them a trip to the Super Bowl a couple of years ago. There's Roshan Johnson, the third string running back on the Bears. I just,
Yeah,
there's
we'll see.
just not too many of them.
We'll see. They didn't have anyone really good drafted for a minute. Um,
No.
Now that's changed obviously since last year. Last year was one of their better squads that they've had. Prior to that, I think their biggest two guys in the league were Vince Young and Cedric Benson. Um, so those were
I
some
almost
good
forgot
guys,
about
but
Benson.
pretty far removed from playing days, obviously. That Georgia Tech Florida State game, like you said, came down to the final possession. That was a heck of a game. That told us, I think, when we get through to the midpoint of the season, probably we're going to look back on that and say that told us more about Georgia Tech than it did about Florida State, possibly. Um, I think Florida State came out, laid an egg, um, that they really can't afford to lay in ACC play right now with the landscape of college football, the way the conferences are, because they've got um, a lot riding on each game as they go. The good thing is they're guaranteed a spot in the playoff if they win their conference championship come the end of the season. The question just comes whether they are able to get through Clemson. Are they able to get through Miami, North Carolina State? Um, all these teams that they're going to inevitably have to run through. Um, I think probably they will end up doing okay. And I think you're looking at a championship game appearance for Florida State, an ACC championship game. Georgia Tech, though, tough team. Really beefed up on the line, great running game, great discipline in the pocket from their quarterback. Tell me what you thought.
There were a few things that really stuck out to me. First, like you said, Georgia Tech is a tough team. They have a blue collar work ethic. They are not going to shy away from contact. I mean, their first score of the game, their first score of the season, they send their backup quarterback out there for a belldozer type run. Just takes the ball and he lowered his shoulder and ran forward. I mean, that's what you love to see. But on top of that, I saw an interesting stat. Mike Norvell, as the head coach at Florida State, is 2-8 when Jordan Travis is not his starting quarterback. And so do with that what you will when it comes to them not making it to the college football playoff last year. On top of that, Florida State, I have no doubt that they'll bounce back. They have a really talented roster. Here's what I want to know. Do you think when it comes to DJ Oyagale's play, do you think it was more bad coaching? Do you think it's because he's terrible, or do you think it's a mix of both? Because on that last drive of the game, he was throwing darts. When he was actually allowed to throw downfield, he was getting guys in stride. He was getting them open. He was throwing them open on occasion. He had a great drive, but Mike Norvell just seemingly didn't want him to throw past the line of scrimmage for most of the game. So that's something that we'll be able to see as the season goes on,
Well,
especially.
it's for what if you're asking me whether I think it was coaching or skill on the field. I don't think Mike Norvell or the rest of that coaching staff forgot how to coach quarterbacks in the offseason. And I don't think they would have changed their game plan that drastically. The skill gap between Jordan Travis and Uiagalelei, it's there, obviously. Is it that much of a difference? No, I don't think so. Not so much that they can't air it out with Uiagalelei a little bit in that type of a system. So I would say Georgia Tech played really tight, really well, and disciplined for the most part defensively. Took away some of the deep options they had, applied good pressure, did
They
what they
were
had
all
to
over
do to
him.
be able to shut him down.
Yeah, and I get that. And we'll see as the season progresses if they can figure it out. I remember before their season last year, Mike Norvell was already kind of getting on the nerves of some Florida State fans. And now that Jordan Travis is gone, we'll see if that resumes, but we'll see.
Yep. Yep. We will see. Jaden Jackson at the top of our defensive tackle lineup alongside Dominic Williams, the nose. That's a heck of a statement, I think. Jaden Jackson, true freshman, 6'2", 312, being put on the starting line for our defense going into week one. First true freshman to start at that position since Tommy Harris, long time ago for us. What are your thoughts on our depth chart? Anything that really stuck out to you? I know there were some interesting looks in the wide receiver room.
Yeah. I wasn't anticipating Brennan Thompson sharing starting reps with Nick Anderson. And now Nick Anderson having been ruled out, we'll see a lot of Brennan Thompson tomorrow. So that kind of surprised me. Jaden Jackson starting as a defensive tackle. You really have to be a special player to be a true freshman starter in a Brent Venables system. Even against teams like Temple, he's not going to start people that he doesn't think will be starting all year long. Peyton Bowen, love seeing him at punt returner. He was a lethal punt returner at Denton Guyer his senior year. He had a bunch of punt return touchdowns. I tell you something that is kind of alarming. It's with the offensive line, the word or appears twice on the entire offensive line depth chart. To put that in perspective, the word or appears three times just at the cornerback spot. But there doesn't seem to be too much competitive depth. It seems to be these are the starters up here, and then down here is everyone else. And with offensive line, that kind of makes me nervous, but I trust Bill Bedenbaugh's ability to get them ready. Also, if you notice, instead of it being Danny Stutzman and Jaron Kanik side by side, the linebacker, Kanik is now playing Mike with Stutzman. Kip Lewis is now the starting will linebacker. Well, mix between Lewis Carter, and Dasan McCullough. But just the amount of depth on the defense, as well as the size, all those big nose tackles, the smallest one being 297 pounds, the big linebackers, cornerbacks who are almost all over 6 foot. I mean, seeing the depth and the size on the defense is going to be such a big difference maker.
Yeah. Yeah, no doubt. I think as we look to this first week against Temple, about 24 hours from now, 24 hours and 47 minutes, we should be getting ready to kick off. Offensively, I'm going to tell you what I'm looking for. I want to know what you're looking for. I'm looking to just see some cohesion and, for lack of a better term, relationship building among our offensive line. Right near 120 career snaps for these guys, none of them taken together as a unit. So, what are we really going to be able to do there? These, dinky games at the front of your schedule sometimes can overinflate the sense of security in certain position groups. Other times you can see some weaknesses exposed where guys maybe aren't taking things quite as seriously. So that's going to be my thing offensively to look for. And just seeing that our offensive line can come out there, they can be a unit, they can work together, and give Jackson Arnold, Michael Hawkins, and maybe even Casey Thompson at some point in the game a chance to really air the ball out from the pocket.
Yeah, I agree with everything you're saying there. On top of that, you've got running backs who are just absolutely elite. You've got a quarterback who we know is deadly accurate, can be deadly accurate. We haven't really seen him play too much before with Jackson Arnold. The main thing I'm looking for is to see just in general, like you said, how the offensive line works together. We had a pretty solid offensive line by the end of last season, but like if you remember, even against Arkansas State, we kind of struggled in running the ball. I think we averaged like 3 yards a carry. Our run game didn't really get going last year until the Texas game. And so even against these even against these nobody teams like Temple, I'd like to see the offensive line come together, protect Jackson Arnold, and really open up some big holes in the run game. If anyone can get them ready, it would be Bill Bedenbaugh. And also, I want to see I want to see a lot of Jackson Arnold's arm. We know Brent Venables isn't afraid to run up the score. I want to see Jackson Arnold just pick apart the defense, carve them up like they're a Thanksgiving turkey. And when I was doing some research for this game, the Temple defense, they lost half of their best guys. Their six best tacklers last year. And keep in mind, this unit allowed almost 200 rushing yards per game and almost 36 points per game. They they lost six of their best tacklers, either to the NFL, to another score. Or they graduated. That's it. And so, especially against a defense that not talented, I'd like to see that. And when it comes to the OU defense, I'm hoping we can see a bit more pressure on the quarterback. Brent Venables' first season at OU, we led the country in sacks and tackles for loss. Last year, we struggled. I mean, we struggled. Yeah, we got 5 sacks against Texas, but we got like 2 sacks in the first 2 games of the season. And so I'd like to see our edge rushers really take it up to that next level. And I'd like to see that defensive line just shut down the run. They did for a lot of last year, but not all of last year. I'd like to see signs that we can have a constant rotation of guys in there, and every one of them is just going to shut down the run. So offense and defense, really, I'm looking at the trenches.
Yeah. Yeah. I think last year, too, we saw a whole lot of inability to manage success and deal with success. So I don't know that we're going to get some of these answers this early, but we can hope. Same sort of thing as far as what I'm looking for from the defense. I just want to see some pressure because it was really lackluster last year. This year, we've got one of the biggest defensive lines we've had in recent memory. Some really strong guys, a nice portal addition, and Dominic Williams, getting Caden Woolard in there too, the All MAC player. So we've got the pieces. I think when this all wraps up, I think we're looking at a 49-6 victory for the Sooners. I think we put those up there. I'm seeing maybe late in the game maybe a kick return, maybe a run, something like that, just getting them north of the 50, far enough to get a field goal or two. I think if we cover this spread, it's going to be a very, very narrow cover. What do you have us going? I've got 49-6 Sooners.
I kind of disagree with you on the covering part because, like we were talking about earlier, Brent Venables is not afraid to run up the score. Last year, we were just like 37.5 point favorites against Arkansas State. Even in the third quarter, when our backups were out there, we were taking shots down the field. We were doing everything we could to score on every drive and ended up winning 76-0. My score prediction is 63-7. It's very hard to pitch a shutout. We certainly have the potential to, but it's so hard to pitch a shutout. I think Temple will find the end zone once and only once. But I think our offense, I think Jackson Arnold's going to go out there and lead a touchdown drive every drive of the first half. And then Michael Hawkins will come out in the third quarter and lead probably 2 or 3 touchdown drives. Heck, after whoever the quarterback after Casey Thompson ends up being on the depth chart, we don't have General Booty anymore, unfortunately. But whoever that quarterback ends up being, we might see the pride taking snaps because if I know Brent Venables, he's going to want to get every player as many reps as possible. And the best way to do that is to score as much as you can.
We'll see. We'll see what happens. As we look past week one, just looking to the season, locking in these final predictions, going through the schedule here, game by game. Temple win, Houston win, Tulane win, Tennessee, first real test of the season, first conference game. I think we're looking at a win there. It'll be tight, very tight. Oklahoma beats Auburn. OU, Texas, I'm not sure which way to go on that one at this moment. I think there's some unknowns with Texas coming off the season they had and losing some of the depth that was on their roster, not having CJ Baxter in the backfield this year. Because of that, I think we're looking at maybe a 5-1 to 6-0 start through those first 6 games of the year. We beat South Carolina. I see probably a loss to Ole Miss. We beat Missouri pretty handily. Lose to Alabama, and LSU is another one that's going to be a toss-up. I think we end up pulling it out. So I guess all that together for me puts us at what, 10-2 for the year?
9-3 or 10-2, yeah.
Yeah, 9-3 or 10-2. It's going to depend on either the Texas game or the LSU game. I don't see us losing both of those, but I could see us dropping one of them. Overall, I think it would be a very successful first season in the SEC. Not much of a drop from our final year in the Big 12, not much of a gain, but nobody's really expecting us to gain ground this year nationally. So I will lock in 10-2 as my final prediction right now for our season, regular season.
I could very easily see 10-2, and just kind of going through the roster. First 3 games of the season, Temple, Houston, Tulane will win all of those. Tulane, I anticipate giving us a little bit of trouble. Maybe Houston, but not likely. Tennessee, I think we can win that one pretty easily. They've got a monster of a quarterback, or at least his arm is a monster. We don't really know much about him as a starter. So we'll see how he pans out, how the rest of that Tennessee team pans out. Auburn, on paper, we should beat by 50, but they were playing at Jordan-Hare. And when you look at the past few Iron Bowls at Jordan-Hare, just ask Alabama how easy it is to play there. The last 2 Iron Bowls played at Jordan-Hare relied on miracle plays in the last minute of the game for Alabama to win those games. And 2 Iron Bowls ago at Jordan-Hare went into 4 overtimes for them to win. Texas, I think that's another one that we should win, but you just never know how the OU Texas game is going to go each year. It could be 5-0 versus 0-5, and that game will come down to the final play. On paper, though, I think we are far and away the better team. South Carolina, we should beat pretty well. Ole Miss, I could see us losing because it's a really good Ole Miss team with a great quarterback in Oxford. That's not going to be an easy game. So I'm going to count Ole Miss as our first loss of the season. Maine, I think we might struggle, but we'll find a way to pull it out. I kid. Missouri, it's going to be played at Missouri. We should beat them by 40, but you never know with some of these away games. Alabama, it'll just kind of depend on the team Kalen DeBoer has. If he has them with the same toughness that Nick Saban had his Alabama teams, we will have no easy path in that game. That would be a tough game to win. But if Kalen DeBoer runs them more like he ran Washington last year, I could see us beating them. And then that last game against LSU, that's not going to be easy because it's at Death Valley. It's in Baton Rouge. That would be an absolute monster of a game if we could win. So I'm gonna go with about 10-2 on the year. But yeah. That's my projection. We've talked about our score projection. Now all we need to do is watch the game. So signing off for the Sooner Pocket Podcast. I'm Chris. That's Sam. Boomer Sooner. See y'all next time.